Thank you, Kat. I know it's been a long day. For those that are still here, the next gentleman coming to stage won't be disappointing. He's going to be presenting Biohacker, the Invisible Threat. His name is Len No, and his message is resistance is futile. I spent some time with Len last night, so I'm going to make sure I get this right for reasons that I'm sure all of you will get to learn as he goes through his presentation. Len No is a white hat and technical evangelist for CyberArk software. Together with the CyberArk Global Solutions engineering team, they are responsible for enabling internal staff and the starting point for escalation for all SEs in the field. They are responsible for the global templates used by all SEs and partners, building new integrations and use cases for all engineers. Len is an international security speaker who has presented in over 29 countries and multiple major security conferences worldwide. Prior to 2001, Len was a black, gray hat hacker and learned most of his skills by practical application. Len has spent 20 years in the areas of web development, system engineering, administration, architecture, coding, and the past 6 years focusing on information security from an attacker's perspective. Len is on the cutting edge of technology and recognized as a leader in the transhuman cyborg movement. He has 7 microchips under his skin that are used as offensive cyber tools. Len has demonstrated the hacking abilities of augmented humans and provides information for security professionals to adapt to this new threat landscape. He also actively participates in the activities of the information security communities in Texas, the Autism Society, and many others. Ladies and gentlemen, help me welcome Len to the stage.
How y'all doing? I like that. Woos are happy. As was just said, my name is Len No, pronounced no, opposite of yes. And if you ask my parents, I was named very, very appropriately because I've heard Len, no, 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 pretty much my whole damn life. So this is probably going to be one of the more out there talks, but everything that you are going to see today is real. So this talk was originally done last year with some mild modifications at the RSA conference, but due to the fact that COVID kind of repressed all of us from being able to get out in the world and actually share this information, I'd like to thank BSides Cayman for giving me the opportunity to come here and present. So let's go ahead and get started. As I said, my name is Len No. I am currently a technical evangelist and a white hat for CyberArk software. I've been with CyberArk for 9 years. I've been breaking into computers since the Commodore 64 days, and to be honest, there's really not much else I'm really good at. Yes, that is a QR code. Yes, it is safe. If I was actually trying to hack you, this would probably be a very, very career-limiting move at a large event like this. The only thing that QR code is going to give you is basically my contact information that you see right there. So I'm going to start this chat by asking everybody here a simple question. What do cyborgs look like? I have no doubt that in the heads of everybody out here, maybe you're thinking Darth Vader, maybe you're thinking a Terminator. But the truth is, you might actually be friends with a cyborg and you don't even know it yet. These are my hands. As you can see from the x-ray here, I have multiple implants in my hands, and this x-ray is actually a little bit older. I actually have quite a few more since the time this was actually done. But I'm going to explain what I currently have, and I'll tell you guys a little bit more about what I'm doing on my roadmap to actually become more than human. So I'm going to start off. I have what is called a FlexNext. This is a flexible membrane RFID and NFC chip with a very large coiled antenna. This allows me to program the chip to anything that would fall under either low frequency RFID or high frequency NFC. I have a next chip. This one, as you can see, is a different form factor. This was actually the very first implant that I ever got. And before I get the questions later, yes, all of my implants were actually implanted in my body for the purposes of offensive security. The next chip, as it was the first implant I ever got, I discovered that I just didn't have enough distance in order to be able to perform, any type of exfiltration or compromise of a mobile device and still make it look like it was a normal, handling of a cell phone. These two chips are essentially identical. I use the very large one for offensive purposes. The small one actually currently is the key to unlock my office at home, keeps my wife and my kids out of my office. I have a Flex M1 Magic. This is a MyFair Classic with the rewritable 1K chip. So anybody that's using a MyFair Classic, I can actually write that information directly down onto one of the implants in my hands. And for the record, here's to the Holiday Inn. Already downloaded your MyFair door card, and it's actually already on my hand. This is what happens when I get bored. I have a VivoKey Spark 2. This is actually a Crypto Bionic chip that actually has a companion application on my phone and is actually part of a triple factor authentication to get into my crypto wallet. Since the time of these x-rays were taken, I actually have a Flex EM in my wrist right here. This actually allows me the ability to emulate Indala, Prox, Pyramid, Diamond in terms of physical authentication protocols. I also have a Titan biomagnet in my hand, and this is where I like to do this little trick here if nobody's ever seen it. So I can actually pick up metal objects with my pinky. It makes for a really cool bar trick, but that's not what it was for. This actually gives me the ability to feel electromagnetic currents and electromagnetic fields. And I get the questions all the time, well, what does that do for you, Len? I'm a pen tester, so I also do physical pen testing. I'm a very avid lock picker, but let's talk about your warehouses. What type of locks are typically used in warehouses and storage? Magnetic locks. So that allows me on the outside, I can actually run my hands over the outside of your building and I can find the electrical pathways to where that electric lock are, which gives me better opportunities, especially if it's an invasive pen test that I can actually shim your magnetic locks. Currently sitting at home right now, I actually have 2 more implants that I'm just waiting to actually be put in. I have a chip called the Wallet More. This actually allows me the ability to do tap to pay just like Android Wallet, Apple Pay, or your NFC credit cards. I have an HID implant that will allow me to impersonate HID 1, 2, and 3 for physical access cards. And I have an NFC DesFire 2 that I'm waiting on delivery. And then I'll just go ahead and get all 3 of those implanted at once. This will actually give me higher NFC capabilities up to and including using it as part of a multi-factor authentication on my computer. So I am extremely heavily implanted. So as I said, augmented humans are not science fiction. We're science fact. We're here and we're not going anywhere. And as the technology continues to evolve, so will we. So I've broken this talk today up into 3 separate parts. We're going to start off with a little bit of history on the transhuman movement, where we got our starts, and then we're going to move into today, and then what the future holds for augmented humans and security around people like myself. So when we talk about implant technology, this is not a very long timeline. The first cardiac pacemaker was actually installed in Buffalo, New York in 1952. And it was not a completely implanted device. The power for the pacemaker actually had leads coming out of the subject's chest and were connected to a external power supply that was actually the size of an old table radio. The first implanted electric pacemaker happened in 1958, and this was actually done inside of a pig. The first human implant wasn't until 1960. So, I mean, if you take a look, we're talking 70 years ago. This is not a very long timeline. 1964 gave us the first smart pacemaker. This was a device that actually took biofeedback from the body and was able to actually make adjustments to its protocols based on that feedback. Through the 70s and 80s, there was some things that came out, but nothing really major. We didn't really start seeing a lot of improvement in the biotechnology for implants until the mid-90s to the 2000s, where we started seeing smart prosthetics, all the way up to where we have artificial intelligence now. One of the things that's not on this list, but there was actually a surgery done a couple of months ago where there was a new microcontroller implant that was actually put on a paralyzed man's spinal cord. And he actually has some ambulatory movement now. I mean, he's not jumping up and dancing and all, but I mean, this is some major scientific biomedical breakthroughs, and this is where we are today. So when we talk about today, what is the biohacker all about today? If you take a look at us, we're called all kinds of different things. Biohackers, transhumans, grinders. I was even called wet work when I was in Sweden about 2 weeks ago. Essentially, we are the product of a gentleman by the name of Julian Huxley, who coined the term transhuman back in 1957, and he actually started a movement. And the transhuman movement is a social and philosophical, movement dedicated to basically taking the human being beyond the physical form that we were born into. So this can be very confusing sometimes because I am a voluntary transhuman. I chose to do this to myself. I'm actually a very large guinea pig, and I know it. But if we take a look at the medical industry, we have people with pacemakers, pain management devices. We have people with insulin pumps. All of these people would be considered transhuman under Julian Huxley's definition. These are people whose lives are either extended, enhanced, or saved through the use of technology. So the question I always get is, where do we find implants? Let's be honest, the same place we find everything else, the internet. If you're in the European, EMEA, there's a company called KSEC, K-S-E-C-K. If you're in the Americas, the big manufacturers of a company called DangerousThings.com out of Seattle, Washington. And when we talk about implants, what kind of implants are there? We have magnets, both lifting as well as biosensing. And when I talk about biosensing, this actually does exactly what it sounds like. So this gives me basically the Spider-Man Spidey sense. So if I get too close to a magnet, even a speaker, I'll feel it in my hand. Believe it or not, the one thing that triggers it more than anything else is my can opener back at home. One of those big can openers you plug. My wife actually, opens a can. I can be at least 3 to 4 feet away from her, and I can feel the energy that's in the field that's coming off of that. But we have lifting magnets. Personally, I don't see there's a lot of use case to these, except if you want to go to the bar and try and get some free drinks. But hey, to each their own. We have NFC, and what you see here, this is a flexible membrane implant. So as you can see from the top of this, we have the chip, and then everything below that is the antenna. We have RFID. We have bioglass encapsulation. So what you see on the left is essentially the same thing as on the right, but the difference is those bioglass encapsulated chips are about the size of a long grain rice. So the entire antenna is contained within that little glass cylinder. So as a result of that, your distance for read becomes much, much smaller. And, the Cayman Island, you guys seem like a bunch of party animals. So if you like it, we even have LEDs. If you want to go clubbing at night, one glow stick in this hand, hold your phone in this hand, the NFC reader actually starts lighting up your hand and you can blink. Hey, to each their own. Personally, I'm not into that, but I don't begrudge anybody for going out and partying on a Friday night. What can I say? So when we talk about use cases, this is what people expected these chips to be used for. There's an implant that if you drive like a Tesla Model 3, we can take the valet option, which is a subset of the original key that's used to actually start your car. And you can write that to an implant chip. So you can potentially walk in, jump in your car, don't have to worry about your keys, and you can drive off. No big deal. We have fob replacements. This is what most commercial grade implants are used for. If you're a member of a gym, maybe you have a garage, shared type of services where they give you some type of a puck. You can actually put these down into an implant and actually go about your business. That's kind of what they were originally invented for. Membership tokens, like I said, gyms, maybe you're in an apartment complex and you have to be able to scan into the front door. These are normal use cases. All the way up to and including contactless payments. With the WalletMore chip that was released in the UK, we now have the ability to do tap to pay, just like I said. It's the same technologies in any NFC-based credit card, Android Wallet, or Apple Pay. That's at home. Can't wait to get that one installed. But unfortunately, not all of us are friendly. This introduces a new attack vector, the human being. When it comes to, all of the people that have spoken before me today, I agree with every single thing that they've said. And even to Kat's point, in threat modeling, we're used to the normal attack vectors, USB drives, phishing emails, spear phishing. Everybody's familiar with these. But how do you deal with somebody that could potentially have an entire Linux system inside their body doing unattended low energy Bluetooth scans or Metasploit autopwn? And the truth is, you can't find us. I can walk right through metal detectors. I fly through international airports. You will not find me. The only way that you can detect on these is with frequency analyzers, and you have to start actually looking for the frequencies of the individual chips. And you better have a big enough energy field for me to be able to be detected. We're going to talk about that as we go along. So this is a peg leg. This is actually what I'm working on getting done next. The only difference is I'm not actually using a Raspberry Pi Zero W. I'm working with a gentleman from the Dallas Hackers Association who's a KiCad designer, and we're actually building a single board processing computer with multiple Wi-Fi for the sole purposes of implanting it in my leg. And as you can see, we have a wireless power receiver on this. And the reason being is because, and this is the main problem with all implants currently on a commercial scale, there is no internal power. All of the chips that I have currently implanted in my body, they get their power from the receiver, just like any NFC chip. So this is both good and bad. But when it comes to the peg leg, what we've done is we've actually put an indirect power receiver on it with no battery. So it's going to basically, once it's implanted in my leg, I take an external battery with rapid charging capabilities, put it into my pocket, it powers the device. I can access that device through either SSH or HTTPS through the onboard applications. I can stand next to you and do low energy Bluetooth scans. I can try and auto-pwn anything that it can find. I'm also looking at actually having a slice down my leg and running copper wire between my thigh almost all the way to my ankle to act as an antenna. So yeah, I'm a little bit out there. When it comes to the peg legs, this was a grassroots movement, and there is no idea how many of these things are out there. I know for a fact that I know two guys that actually have done this particular implant, but the issue comes into the encapsulation. Because this is a Raspberry Pi Zero W, they're using two-part epoxy to try and do their bioencapsulation. And as such, it's not safe. I know one guy who wound up with heavy metal poisoning because some of the epoxy didn't seal correctly, and some of the heavy metals on the circuit boards actually leached into his blood system, had to have emergency removal surgery. So that's why I'm actually working in conjunction with DangerousThings.com out of Seattle, and they're the ones that are doing my bioencapsulation on mine. But the fact that there's at least one individual out there that has these types of devices embedded within their body should be more than enough to actually cause, CISOs and security admins to at least stop and take notice. Nope, wrong button. So let's get into the fun stuff. I told everybody that I'm going to actually demonstrate 3 separate attacks today utilizing the implants in my hands. So the first one we're going to show is an attack that I've lovingly named Handshake. This is a physical access attack. This would be around your access control, inventory, your keyless entries on your physical locations. So when I talk about cloning cards, this is not something new. The ability to clone an access badge has been around for over 15 years. The difference between what I'm doing and what has been done before me is the fact that before, if you get caught in a restricted location, there is going to always be some type of card, a prox mark. You're going to have something on you that you could use as an indication of compromise. When I write these down to my implants, I can leave my programmer out in the car, and if I get caught, you can call the police on me. I don't care. They can search me. They can go through my pockets. There's no other card. There's no electronic devices. And from a blue team or a digital forensics and incident response perspective, you're going to play hell trying to figure out how the hell I got in there. So with that, can I cue up video number 1, please? And I'm going to go through this in real time with you guys. So we're going to start off. I'm going to open up my Proxmark Chameleon Mini software. Yes, that's my real ID, and yes, I look like every hacker clip art that you've ever seen in your life. And the first thing we're going to notice is I grab a new UID for a tag. So I'm going to go ahead and just to make sure that we know what's what, I'm going to name this Lens ID. So we're going to go Lens ID. Now I'm going to go ahead and let's get a baseline. So let's scan the implant in my hand. So we go ahead, we click the button, we receive a new UID, and we're going to name this one Implant. And if anybody wants to see this kind of thing, hit me up after. I've actually got my programmer in the other room. So at this point, just to keep everything straight, we're going to name this Implant. So if you noticed, the only thing that was different was Sector 0, Line A. So at this point, if I'm part of any type of hackers collective, I can load this stuff up into Google Drive and I can share your data anywhere. But that's not necessarily what I want to do. So right out of the box, I'm using a tool called the MyFair Classic tool. I'm going to import those 2 dump files, and then we're going to run a diff command against them. Keep in mind that if I'm part of a larger hacking group, I can share these with, other people, and now multiple people have access to your physical locations. So we import both of those, and we're going to go ahead and run a diff. We're going to select the implant as the first option, and my ID is the second, and you'll see that everything is identical except for Sector 0, Line A. So anybody want to guess what we're going to do next? We're going to write the card. It's not that hard. Select all the sectors. I can even do this through my cell phone. Write this back down onto the implant. It finds the new tag. Select all sectors, write the tag. And at this point now, just to prove it, once everything is written, we're going to go ahead and we're going to remap. There you go. Created the key map. Now I'm going to go back into my Proxmark tool, into channel 3. Go ahead and scan my implant one more time. We'll catch the UID, and we're going to name this one Implant 2. And pay close attention. You'll see that 78689, I believe, is the last 4 digits of Sector 0, Line A, 6869. Now if we click Implant 2, 6869. So at this point, I now have an exact duplicate of the physical card written down to an implant on my hand. One of the things that, to Kat's point from her previous discussion, we talk a lot about multi-factor authentication, and the idea of MFA against any type of sensitive data. This is something that's been beaten into our heads for years. Why don't we do the same thing when it comes to physical access? How many times do you see just a badge reader with no pin next to it? If you have a single point of failure into your data center, somebody like myself can actually compromise your data center, sit there in your server room, and you have no idea how the hell I got in there. And the worst you can do is actually just have me trespassed off your property. Because technically, if I tell you, the door was open, I just walked in. I thought this was part of the tour. You know, I can play stupid, and it's not up to me. It's up to the security on your physical access as to whether or not they want to try and go deeper. They call the police. Go ahead. I've been arrested before. What are you going to arrest me for? You know, it was an open door. I'm sorry. You can't take me to jail. You can't take me in and question me. All you can do is tell me you don't come back on our property. How do you know I haven't already dropped something in your server room? You don't. So the next two use cases we're going to be discussing are around near-field communication. Typical uses, if people aren't familiar with NFC, pretty much built into every cell phone out there. Heavily used in IoT and loosely connected devices. We're going to show two different attacks today. First one is going to be called leprosy, and then the second one's going to be called flesh hook. So if we talk about leprosy, this is kind of a social engineering attack, but if anybody's actually hung out with me for more than 5 minutes, you know, I'm a pretty personable guy. You know, it's not hard. So I'm actually going to talk this attack through for you guys in real time. This requires a little bit of social engineering. This will also give me permanent persistence on the device. Because what I've done is I've actually created a malicious APK with MFS Venom, which is the utility to create callbacks for Metasploit. So I'm here in the Cayman Islands. Beautiful place. Love this place. This place is awesome. You know, we've got BSides going on. If I was sitting out there in between sessions and, you know, started making a big fuss about, you know, something happening to one of my grandkids, you know, and my phone was dead, you know, oh my God, somebody help me. I guarantee you that somebody would actually give me their phone. So let me show you what this looks like in real life. Guys, video 2, please. So I'm going to do this in real time. You know, what we have up on the top is my ngrok for obfuscation. I like to explain everything. Bottom part of the screen, we're actually going to be launching our Metasploit, loading it up with a resource file, and starting a listener. So let me do this in real time for you guys, as soon as you see the phone here. Oh my God, somebody help me out. Something happened to my grandkids. You know, I was on the phone with my wife. My phone died. Thank you. Just thank you. Okay. What's the country code for the US? It's +1. What's my wife's phone number? 7. I mean, who the hell actually remembers phone numbers anymore? We all just go into our contacts. So, oh shit, 734. Yeah, it's a 734 area code because I'm from Michigan. What is her phone number? 734-661? 6'2"? You know, all I know is that she said something happened to my granddaughter. You know, shoot, man, I'm gonna have to plug my phone in and go check it out. I'm sorry, I just can't remember. Give you your phone back. I've already popped a reverse shell on your device. And here I can pull sysinfo. I can dump your call logs. I can dump all of your SMS. I can even spawn a shell and actually navigate your entire file system. It's not that hard. You know, how do you as security professionals protect against an attack vector if you don't know that it's even conceivably existing? You know, this is not Star Wars, this is not Star Trek, this is 2002, and we're real. To that point, you know, the last attack vector we're going to show today is one called flesh hook. Anybody here familiar with the beef suite? I got one person. I love beef. Beef is the browser extension exploit framework. So I'm assuming we've all heard that old adage of be careful, you know, don't log into, you know, bad websites, because if you do, the bad guys can get into your computer just by getting to that website. This is that website. It basically utilizes Java and within the header of the web page, and actually puts a hook into your device. This one, all right, let's be honest. How many people in here are iPhone people? Androids? Yay! Android people, we're all screwed. To my iPhone friends out there, you guys are okay for a little bit longer. Apple has a proprietary NFC chip that is currently being challenged in the courts in Europe right now. If they lose, you're going to be just as vulnerable as the rest of us Android people. And the only difference is the fact that Androids will do native reads and writes of NFC. On an iPhone, you actually have to gain access to NFC through an app. But if they lose, you guys are just as susceptible as we are. And this particular attack is the only attack that I've got in my repertoire that I'm willing to show today that actually can be used against an iPhone, because all I'm doing is utilizing the NFC chip in my hand to actually redirect them to an actual website that I own. So details around this one, it does require some social engineering. And essentially, like I said, we're going to trigger the URL from the implant, and we're going to point them at one of my servers. Video 3, please. So again, I'm very, very honest and blunt in my demonstrations. I want people to learn. So you'll find that it actually takes longer for me to actually load up the beef suite than it does to actually compromise the device. So in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, yay! Here we go. All right. We're going to go ahead and we're going to open up Firefox and log into the beef control panel. Go in as an admin. If you've never used this, this is an amazing tool. And because I deal with mostly technical people, what I've done is I've actually cloned the Putty website. And all I have to do is get the phone into my hands. Hey, man, check this out. I got a YouTube video I want to send you. Let me pull it up for you. Meantime, what I'm doing is I'm triggering you to go into my website, hand you your phone back. It looks like Putty. But if you take a look, now I've got a new online device. From the icons, you can see that it's an Android. From the main page, I can get pretty much most of the information about that device in terms of what type. But now I actually have the ability to run predefined modules. So let's have some fun. Let's do some geolocation. So I can actually identify where you are in the world just by you logging into a website. And if we take a look here, we'll see that it'll show that I'm in the United States, in Texas, in the city of Pflugerville, which is where I was when I created this video. If you're connected to a network, I can do complete IP enumeration. And I can ride your VPN right back into your corporate environment. I can even do spear phishing attacks on the device itself. We're going to go ahead and launch a ping sweep here. So this will start at whatever the subnet is and go from 0 to 255. And I can turn around and use that to whatever I want. And the whole point is all of this was initiated from implants that are inside my hands. So we are here. We're not going anywhere. And the truth is, if you don't start taking a look at the fact that these are real attack vectors, you might be putting yourself as well as your corporate environments in a very vulnerable position. So when we talk about the transhuman movement, what will we become tomorrow? When we talk about the future of grinders and transhumans like myself, it's almost like we're trying to write a brand new science fiction movie. We have Tesla with the Neuralink. And if you thought they were the only ones that were trying to do the brain implants, they're not. Their biggest competitor actually started human trials last week. Tesla actually released information that they had implanted the Neuralink into 13 chimpanzees, and 7 of them, unfortunately, did not make it. So before anybody asks, Len, will you get a brain implant? Quite possibly, but I'm not going to be the guinea pig for that one. We have things like the Willet. If you haven't heard about it, this is actually a Bluetooth transmitter and receiver that has no internal battery and actually takes its energy from the atmosphere. Beyond that, when it comes to internal bioimplants, there's been major breakthroughs over the last 2 months that now we have the ability to power implants with the body's internal thermal heat. So if you remember when I was talking about the peg leg, We had that indirect power charger because the truth is we can't have a battery inside of us yet. At least from a commercial scale, I mean, we could, but has anybody ever used like one of those rapid wireless chargers on your cell phones? If you put your phone on that pad and leave it there for about 45 minutes, when you pick it up, what does it feel like? Hot. Very hot. So as such, that is not something that I personally would like to feel inside my body. To that point, anyone that thinks that having magnets in your hand is just a really cool thing, I'm this, everybody tells me I'm this rather, intimidating looking gentleman. I don't necessarily agree, but you know what my biggest fear is? MRIs is up there. Yes, MRIs are definitely up there, but honestly, magnets. You think pain. Imagine, my brother loves to be a prankster. He actually put an earth magnet in my pocket one day. Imagine being pinched from the inside and the outside of your skin. It is not a pleasant feeling, So, yeah. Finally, we can talk about things like the neurograin. This one, to me, we have definitely left the reservation and we're going out into uncharted waters. The neurograin is an implantable Wi-Fi transmitter and receiver. And the mission statement of this company is to basically turn the human population into the world's largest Wi-Fi mesh network. You want to talk about hacking your neighbor's Wi-Fi being a completely new terminology. And this is what we're looking at. We've seen massive improvements in graphene battery technology over the last 5 to 6 months. We also have the ability, like I said, to generate energy from the body's thermal heat. We have all of this technology, and the only thing that's stopping the transhuman movement is internal reliable power. Well, it's coming. So if you're the security admin at your facility, or you're the CISO, how do you deal with the fact that human beings are now putting these types of things in their bodies? One of the questions I love to ask is does the fact that somebody has an implanted technology automatically make them a threat? Anyone? If somebody was to, say, get an implant of an RFID or an NFC chip, and they're using it for the purposes, like I said, on the standard use cases, maybe they're using it to access a garage or a gym, does that automatically make them more of a threat from a CISO or a corporate environment's perspective than your standard Joe average? My concern being a transhuman is the fact that, people don't understand this. I mean, I've had people ask me, for starters, just to give you all a little, ha-ha, some of the questions I've been asked are absolutely hysterical. Len, is that what happened after you got your COVID vaccination? Yes. If you want to ask me that question, then the answer is yes. Is that the same chip that's inside my cat or my dog? Sure. If that's what you think, go ahead. To be honest, I've even caught the attention of some extreme religious groups. This is no joke. I actually didn't even know they did this. But I actually found an article that was written, utilizing some of the data that was put out there in some of the interviews that I've done. And I've actually been basically labeled as having the mark of the beast. I'm not trying to be disrespectful to anybody's faith or their philosophies. I'm really not. I can freely tell you I am not a demon. Well, if you ask my wife, she might say differently. But no, I'm not anything like that. I'm just a guy who decided that I love technology to the point where I wanted to be able to trigger things and do things that most normal people couldn't. But my fear is that as people like myself become more and more open about this, there are tens of thousands of modified human beings out there in the world right now. And the truth is, most people don't say anything due to the stigma that is associated with implanted technologies. I don't care. You know, if you want to say that I have the mark of the beast, go ahead. I don't care. If you want to say that I'm a freak, again, I don't care. Whether I'm a freak or not is irrelevant to the fact that I have the ability to do these types of things. And if you are the security professionals within your organizations, you need to learn how to adapt to deal with me. Because don't quote me on this next part, because I'm still trying to get the actual correct term. But back in the day, before the TSA in America was the ones that handled the airplane security, I worked for a company that did similar. I did that job of TSA before TSA. And yes, I know that that kind of carbon dates me a little bit. But the magnetometers in airports are looking for a specific amount of metal. That's why sometimes you can get away with wearing a necklace, but you can't wear your belt. The total amount of metal that is within my implants is below that threshold. You will not detect me. I've been through the standard magnetometers. I've been through the x-rays. You can't catch me. The fact that I'm working on low frequency and high frequency RFID and NFC, which means that you would need to have some type of a spectrum analyzer broadcasting on those exact frequencies of the chips that I have in order to be able to detect me. And the idea of putting one of those in front of every single one of your doors and your entry points on your physical locations is not manageable. So that being said, how do we address people like me? I can't say it enough. It's security in layers. You know, as far as your mobile devices, you know, identity security, multi-factor any of your accounts to the point where if I get in, I'm not going to be able to lateral and escalate with those. When it comes to our physical on-prem locations, you know, how many people here use multi-factor authentication to access sensitive data on their networks? Okay, pretty much common sense. We've all been doing this forever. How many of those, you know, and if you don't want to answer this next question, I understand. How many people have a server room with a single badge in with nothing else? And we hear the crickets go. You know, this is the issue. These are the types of attacks that are going to be coming forward. I have the next iteration of this talk is actually coming out in September. If you find this stuff interesting, keep an eye on me, because I've actually figured out how to drop ransomware through my implants. And I can deploy crypto miners with my implants, on top of the fact that I'm bringing 3 new implants on just to see what I can do with them. But it's all about security in layers, ladies and gentlemen, and anything in between. You know, let's take advantage of the fact that now you know, now I've made you aware. What you do with it after this is up to you. But there are people like me, and I can tell you for a fact that I know a couple of guys that work on red teams in the United States that have these same type of capabilities, and they use them during red team engagements as your initial foothold. You know, as more and more people are doing more corporate type activities from their mobile and loosely connected devices, most of the time we'll see a VPN or some type of a secured transport layer back to their company. If I get into your mobile device, I can ride that all the way in and get an initial foothold within your on-prem. And from there, I can actually launch advanced persistence attacks, lateral movements, privilege escalations. Hell, I can even try and go for a complete domain takeover and throw a golden ticket at you. But the only way to stop this is to get in front of it now. We layer that security, remove single points of failure, look into locking down anything on your mobile devices, and for God's sakes, if you're not using NFC on your mobile device, turn it off. I mean, that's honestly the smartest advice I can give you. People, you know, it comes up a lot with IoT. If you're not using NFC, turn it off. Keep your updates on your phone. Make sure you get all your security patches. For physical access, look into Shield, look into PIN codes. Do not allow a single point of failure. And with that, I'm going to go ahead, and usually I have a lot of questions, so let's go.
So I'm going to push back
Go for it.
at that moment, and then I have a
Sure.
question. All right, so people are walking around here with cochlear implants. Oh, hi. So I'm gonna one pushback and a question. People are walking around with cochlear implants, with rods in their brains with electricity to prevent
You're talking about
Parkinson's,
the artist. Yeah, I've seen him.
Parkinson's, and and other things to augment the
Mhm.
normal human function. I think what you're describing is just things that people aren't used to, that they don't see like an obvious thing that they can see with their eyes
Correct.
per se. So I don't think that people are seeing the augment itself as something strange or new. It's just what devices that is in somebody.
The idea, I think I see where you're coming from. And the truth
Right.
is, like I said, I know two guys that actually have peg legs. So they have full Linux distros in their legs. And multiple people I know in the red team world use the NFC implants as their initial footholds on to get into a larger environment. And the point behind what I'm trying to present to you guys today is not the idea that I'm not giving you anything that hasn't been done before. I'm
Mhm.
just giving you something that's been done before in a different way.
Mhm.
Because if we take a look at, what the way things used to be, the ability to clone ID cards and badges, like I said, has been around for almost 15 years. But up until this point, if you got caught, and this is the big thing about these attacks, is the lack of indications of compromise. So for your digital forensics and your incident response teams, this becomes a major issue. Because unlike before where, I would have a badge that I've cloned, or I would have some type of a device that I could use to emulate a card that I was able to scrape, there's nothing. You can have the cops strip search me, and there is nothing that they're going to find. But yet I was still in the middle of your server room.
Mhm.
How do you address that? How do you follow up after that?
Okay. I hear you. My one question
Sure.
has to do with secure enclaves on, like you said, on phones or on devices that have NFCs, and secure enclaves that have to do with certificates and so forth and things like that. Would the attacks that you describe work on those devices that have those secure enclaves?
Depends on the settings of those devices. I mean, to be honest, the secure enclave devices are good, but you have the ability to modify the policy sets on them, and you can whitelist things. So the one thing about my chips is I have the ability to modify the UID, and I can change them from, some of these I can actually have appear as multiple different types of contactless technology. So it's a matter of just continuing to flip the UIDs and the device identifiers until I find one that your device will read.
Okay, thank you.
Absolutely. Good question. Got one in the back. I get a lot of, and for the record, ladies and gentlemen, I do not believe that there is anything as a dumb question. So go ahead and ask whatever's on your mind. I know I'm way out there in left field, man.
No, I was just wondering, are you in the Dangerous Things Discord?
I am.
You are, okay. Yeah, so I also am. I'm the one developing the keyless entry system for Toyota and Lexus right now. On the
Way to go, dude.
Yeah, I've got the SID or whatever it's called in the left hand.
Yep. So here's another part of my clue. He's trying to do, work for actual access. Does that make him dangerous? But at the same time, how do you differentiate between a gentleman like him and somebody like me? My hopes are to at least educate you guys on the existence of these type of attack vectors, and take this back and do something with it. We have no way that we can actually stop single points of failure. Talk to me.
The funny thing is, I am doing something about it, because just a couple months ago, I started working on a new talk on the human threat model. And when I met you today, I'm going, holy crap, he's
I'm living proof.
yeah, you're kind of where I came from. This was reading about various different implants and what they could do. And I took it to that level was how do we mitigate against that? And that's going to be a talk I'm bringing out
I'd
this
love to
fall.
work with you on it. Because the truth is, there are many people out there like me, and as security professionals, we need to be able to account and mitigate these new vectors. I mean, we all know not to click on links in emails. We know not to just plug random USB devices in, but these are the same types of technologies that can be launched through bioengineering implants.
What's the impact?
Sorry, I didn't catch that.
I apologize. What's the health impact having these implants?
So far, I have had 0 rejection. So I did have a little bit of an issue. These are to put in the bioglass encapsulated chips. It's not that hard. They come most of the time they come pre-sterilized in like a hypodermic needle that's a little bit larger that would normally be used for like body piercing. But the flex membrane implants, these are actual surgeries. So they cut me open, they use dermal elevators, they separate the skin from the muscle tissue below, they create a pocket, they insert the microchip, and then it gets sewed shut. And I'm surprised nobody's asked me the question about doctors. That's usually one of the first ones that come out. No, Len does not go to a doctor. Len does not trust doctors. However, Len has no problems trusting a large Polynesian gentleman with facial tattoos named Pineapple. But the only health concerns that I've ever had was anyone that's ever had any type of medical surgery. They tell you to get on anti-inflammatories prior to your surgery. I was the smart ass and did not do that. So when I had the large one implanted here, I developed a bit of a hematoma under here. Went to the doctors and was like, hey, I just need some prescription grade Advil so I can get the swelling to go down. They were like, we need to schedule a surgery and get that out of you. It's like, dude, I just spent $250 putting that in. You're not taking it out. Sir.
Hi. I think there are 2 problems with what you have going on there. First one is that as you begin to implant those things, especially since they're running operating systems.
They're not.
Well, I mean, like with the peg leg, let's say, and you run a Linux on a system in your body, it would carry an IP address and it would become hackable itself.
To that point, there is no IP address because these are NFC and RFID. However, anyone would have the ability to write and close the chips. I actually have Faraday gloves that I have made for myself so that I can attend functions like DEF CON, Black Hat, and protect myself. There is nothing that someone could do to any one of my implants that could cause physical harm to me.
Mm-hmm.
But what they could do, if you've been around long enough that you remember the old rewritable CD-ROM days. Yeah, I know there's a few of us that here that just laughed. You could essentially close the tag, and then I would not be able to rewrite it with anything new, and I would need to basically have it removed and replaced in order to get something else there. So that is something that is a concern of mine, to the point where, like I said, I actually paid a seamstress to take a pair of racing gloves and line them with Faraday fabric so that I can turn my hands off, because they are, as I said, these are NFC and RFID. They have no internal power.
Right. And speaking to that, a lot of the technology now that depends on power that you don't have to have a battery for is based on inductance. So like that Bluetooth chip is like you move your hand through the air. It's basically metal moving through the Earth's magnetic field. It charges. Things along
I'm
those.
sorry. I'm gonna walk over here. No disrespect. I'm just having a hard time with understanding, and I want to give you the correct answer.
No, what I'm saying is, a lot of the stuff.
The large. Okay, y'all can laugh at me. I missed the day when in the United States they said, okay, we're switching to the metric system on Tuesday, and I just We never did. So somebody who wants to do the conversion for me, the large implant, I can get about 2.5 to 3 inches with.
Right. So what I was asking is, a lot of these chips, or even the Bluetooth you were showing in your presentation,
Mhm.
a lot of the power that it uses is based on metal moving through the magnetic field in the air. It's magnet.
Yes.
So it is able to use small amounts of energy through inductance,
Yes.
magnetic inductance.
Yes.
So essentially, to stop you from being, we just have to run a massive magnetic field through the building, and even Faraday gloves is not gonna.
Yeah, fair. Yeah.
No, but even-
Electromagnets are not my friend. So
yeah. So
but
that's
no,
yeah.
but let's be honest and realistic about it, though. The idea of trying to submit the human body to large magnetic fields is probably not a good idea. I mean, I'm not saying that this actually happened, but I mean, there was a big thing about, the U.S. embassy in help me out here, in Haiti, or not Haiti, but Cuba, where everybody was getting sick and they were like, oh, we think it's sonic or, some type of sound type thing. So, I mean, could it happen? Yeah. But my whole point to you guys is, just because somebody has one of these doesn't make them a threat. And if we go forward with just the thinking that, anybody with a microchip instantly becomes, a potential cyber threat, that to me is very discriminatory, because I'm one of a very, very few select people that have chosen to use the implants in this way. I would rather just bring it out and say, look, guys, these type of attacks can happen. So let's layer our security approach in front of this to take care of the potential bad actors and the threat actors, but still allow, Tom and Jane and to go ahead and use their implants to get into their gym, and it's not a big deal. So rather than focusing on the potential attacker, I think as security professionals, we need to look at our own security stacks and put enough controls in front of it that it becomes a non-issue. But a very, very good point. Is there any other questions out here today? Well, if that's the case, I'd like to thank you guys very much for attending my session. If you have any questions or anything, please feel free. I'm really, really active on social. And they shut my presentation off already. But I'm very active on social. Look me up on LinkedIn. I've got a YouTube channel, and I do a lot with the transhuman movement. So please feel free to reach out. Thank you, Cayman Islands BSides, for giving me this opportunity, and I hope you guys enjoy the rest of the conference.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for coming. Get a good night's rest. We got it all. Do it all over again tomorrow.
Oh, and anybody that wanted it, my name is Len.